It's great to welcome to the program today Nicholas Carr, who's the author of several books on technology and culture, including the Pulitzer Prize finalist The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains. So great to have you on. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks very much, David. It's my pleasure.
So to start with, I think there's probably a lot of people in my audience who generally have the sense that maybe over the last many years, it's become a little more difficult to do sort of deeper learning, focusing on one task for an extended period of time. There's some vague notion that maybe there's something about social media and 140 character posts that may be sort of retraining our brain to some extent. But how do you generally characterize the way that the modern internet and technology have changed the way that we mostly do our thinking?
I think human beings have trouble concentrating, have trouble screening out distractions in general. We're very distractible. And you really do have to practice that and train yourself to concentrate and focus. And I think what the internet does in general, and certainly social media in particular, is it doesn't give us either the opportunity or the encouragement to train ourselves and practice skills of attentiveness, because it just floods us with information that's interesting to us and grabs our attention, but in little chunks. And so my argument is that essentially what we pay to get this abundance of fast flowing information is our ability to concentrate. We can't tap into those deeper, more attentive ways of thinking.
Is there something that's adaptive from an evolutionary standpoint about being easily distracted, in the sense of you're building a fire, but there's a threat off in the distance, and so your mind goes to that shiny object or moving object or something along those lines?
I think that's exactly it. You can understand how in the distant past, in order to stay alive, in order to survive, you needed to know everything that was going on around you, particularly anything new, which might be a threat or might be an opportunity to eat or whatever. So the way our brains work is that we're rewarded with dopamine and other ways, little pleasure producing chemicals, to gather information. And I think it's exactly that this is an evolutionary instinct that unfortunately we bring over into this new digital environment where there's no end to new bits of information to grab and briefly hold our attention.
One thing I've read and heard from some folks is the idea that there was a time in human history, not that long ago really, where there would be a big debate over a fact because we did not have facts so readily accessible on our phones. And that, I mean, this is a very sort of utopian outlook. Now that the facts don't need to be argued about, we just find them, we can devote more time, thanks to the internet and the ready availability of facts, to thinking about the implications of those facts or the future of humanity, how we should interpret that information or whatever the case may be. It feels intuitively like that's not what's going on, but what do you think about that idea anyway?
I think it does go on sometimes.
Oh, really?
I mean,
Okay.
there are good uses of the internet and not so good. There are a couple of problems with that we've learned. One is that actually having a superabundance of information available means anybody can find support for any kind of belief, even if it's totally wrong. So the idea that we'd all share this base of facts turns out not to be right. Human nature gets in the way. And then the other problem with that is, I think when you're distracted all the time, when you're constantly taking in information, you don't have time in your own mind to make connections and associations between all the different pieces of information around you. And it's those associations and connections that are required to give you the bigger context to fit new information into. And that broadens your thinking, deepens your thinking. So yeah, we can Google all sorts of stuff on our phones or on our computers, but we're losing our ability to fit new information into a bigger context. And as a result, we're just kind of turning into, I would argue, information gatherers that don't necessarily have an ability to engage in a deeper conversation with one another or in a deeper train of thought within ourselves.
There's some interesting articles I'm reminded of about this idea of the political hobbyist, which seems very much related to what you're talking about, which is given so much free access to information about what's taking place in the world politically, comments from elected officials, a lot of data, so to speak, there's arguably a less effective political activist that comes out of it because they are just consuming information, sort of as you're pointing out, and not actually taking that information and doing something with it to political differences aside, try to influence sort of their community and their surroundings. Is that sort of the idea of what you're saying when you talk about information overload, which may not be particularly useful?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. I mean, what we know about people is that if you give them an unlimited amount of information, they'll go out and cherry pick the information that reinforces their existing biases, whether those biases are based on fact or fantasy or fiction or whatever. And so what happens, our hope when we started out with the net, with the web, was that we'd have such a broad array of information that people would go out and sample different opinions, different points of view, as you say, become better able to hear other people and influence them or be influenced by them. But what we found is that that rarely happens, unfortunately. What does happen is we all go out in our little bubbles and gather the information that supports our existing biases, which ends up making those biases even stronger. Then we find a lot of people that share those biases, and that has a lot to do with the polarization we see today politically and socially, and an inability to talk beyond the group of people that shares our point of view.
To use a sort of economic term, there's arguably also a diminishing marginal utility to information for decision-making purposes, in the sense of, if you're buying a car, as an example, that first information that you obtain about, you probably have a budget, right? So the price of cars is very important. Do you need a 2 or 4 door car or a sedan or an SUV? Over time, the additional information seems to be less and less useful to actually getting to a decision, right? When you get to what are the spark plugs, what's the life of the LED bulbs or whatever, and maybe
Right.
that's also an idea to consider here.
Yeah, I think you're definitely onto something, and I hadn't really considered that. But and what happens, I think then, is one of two things. Either you become so obsessed by the details that you kind of you spend all your time gathering more and more less valuable information, and it prevents you from actually acting, because you suffer information paralysis. And then the other thing is the deeper you dig, if we're talking about political speech, the more reasons you find to put other people at a distance, the more points of difference you start to uncover, even if they're trivial points, they loom large as you keep gathering more and more information without necessarily, as I said, fitting that information and understanding that information as a part of a bigger, broader context.
Yeah, that's something I've thought of in thinking about, for example, like the political divisions within the left, where sure, you have some on the left who are almost moderate Republicans, as an example. And you have some on the left who are truly socialists. But really, there's probably, pick a number, 85, 90, I don't know what it would be. But there's a lot of overlap about sort of what the majority of those who consider themselves on the mainstream American political left would want. And yet, when you look at the discourse on places like Twitter and others, it seems overwhelmingly focused on the relatively small differences.
Yeah, in some ways that's nothing new. People have been subdividing themselves even when they share a broad understanding for a long time. But I do think the internet accelerates or exaggerates that already common occurrence. It provides not only all sorts of ways to find new points of distinction, but to find ever narrower groups that share your precise interests and your precise views. And as soon as you have that group formation, then even other groups who share a lot of your views seem like outsiders, seem like the enemy. And I do think that's part of the fragmentation we see even within groups of people who you would think would focus on their points of agreement.
To go back where we started about the effect of the internet on our brains and deep thinking, et cetera, when I interviewed Cal Newport previously and read some of his books, and he, at least to some degree, believes that these are issues of sort of training and thinking of the brain like a muscle, and that if you condition the brain to, you close a room and you just read 30 straight minutes, that you're building up a muscle essentially, and that this helps to push back against the instincts that may be pushed on us by sort of the status quo of Western technology and the internet. Is your take that the solution is a systemic one, that it's at the individual level, absent one, it has to be the other, or what's your thought on that?
I certainly think at this point, we've created a set of social norms and social expectations that essentially tell us we should always be online, always monitoring new information, always sending out or receiving messages. You get that from employers, you get that from schools, you get that certainly from your friends, from your relations. So I think it's a systemic issue at this point, and that doesn't mean there's not an individual component. And I think Cal Newport's analogy to building muscle is the right one. What we know about neuroplasticity these days, the brain's malleability, is that you really do have to exercise ways of thinking if you want to retain them. Otherwise, they're going to weaken over time and ultimately disappear. And I think as individuals for a long time now, we've been training ourselves to gather information very, very quickly, to pull in bits of data in lots of overlapping forms, and we're getting good at that. But we have starved ourselves, in effect, or not exercised the ability to pay attention, which is hard for us to do, as I said. So I think if we want to change, you certainly have to pay attention to individual habits, but we also have to recognize that society is sending these very powerful messages that tell all of us, stay online, gather as much information as you can, and don't turn off the flow of information and practice the more attentive or contemplative ways of thinking that are possible for your mind, but don't come naturally to us.
We've been speaking with Nicholas Carr, and we're going to go to a break on the podcast, TV, and radio show. You can find our full conversation, which will continue on the YouTube channel. When it comes to something like in the math space, where even when I was in high school, graphing calculators became a sort of acceptable part of a lot of math classes, where the expectation was no longer that you needed to remember everything. You just needed to understand the concepts and know what tools to use in order to arrive at the answers. That has gone up exponentially with the advent, essentially, of Google and of smartphone technology. Are there examples of where that has been really good, getting off of rote memorization, and then maybe counter examples where it has not been quite so good?
Well, I think the calculator is still a good example because it shows us both the good and the bad ways to use it. And what I think schools found is that if students are allowed to master the arithmetic or mathematical concepts, if they master it before they turn to the calculator to automate it, then they can keep building their skill levels, because any complex skill, you have to master the basic levels and then you rise to the next one and so forth. But if you just give students a calculator and say, here, you don't have to learn this process, you don't have to learn this rule or whatever, then they never build the base from which to move up. And I think when you look at automation in general, whether it's flying planes or doctors learning how to diagnose diseases and stuff, you see the same thing play over. If you allow people to attain mastery of a skill before you automate that skill, then the technology can be very freeing because, as you say, it relieves you of the simple time to do these, what are now routine. But if you simply tell people, oh, you don't have to learn that because the software will do it for you, then actually I think you limit their expertise and limit their talent.
One of the other things I wanted to talk about was the book as a sort of format and an idea. It's interesting that newspapers have struggled dramatically over the years, and they've, in many cases, essentially become just online news websites. So it's still the newspaper in a sort of sense, but it's also something very different. You can go back further to like the phonograph or whatever, and we've seen technologies come and go. The book has sort of changed in that now with Kindle and being able to instantly annotate or look up words, it's certainly a different thing than the sort of one-off, very nicely put together books of the 19th century, as an example, that could take months for a skilled bookmaker to make. It's certainly changed, but the idea of the book of 200, 300, 400 pages of either fiction or well-researched nonfiction as a way to communicate information, that hasn't gone away. What do you think is special about the book, and do you expect that at some point that idea of communicating information may change?
I think you're absolutely right that the book is kind of the one big exception to forms of media that have not been displaced or changed in a radical way by digitalization. 10 years ago, it really looked like the printed book was going away. If you remember, I think the Kindle was first introduced in 2007 or something. Yeah. By 2010, if you looked at the rise in ebook sales, they were doubling or tripling every year. Print sales were basically flat. But soon after that, ebooks hit a wall. They actually sales started to erode. So I think what we've discovered is that there is an experience that we enjoy of sitting down with a book. And I think part of that experience is that in its physical form, the book, you can think of it as both a literal and a kind of metaphorical shield against distraction. If you try to read the same text on your computer screen or on your phone, you can do it, and it's better than nothing. But what you find is you immediately have all these other calls on your attention, just as if you were doing anything else on your phone or a computer. So there's something special. It seems like the content of a book is very, very well suited to the printed physical form in your ability to sustain your attention for a long period of time that's required to read. So I think, the death sentence that seemed to be looming over the printed book 10 years ago, it hasn't panned out. And I think, you could argue that printed books are less and less central to our culture compared to the internet and social media. But still, when people want to read, they've shown a distinct continuing preference for the printed form of that.
Yeah, almost beyond logic, right? I mean, it's like I'm buying bookshelves and, this is, as you have a bunch of books behind you, they take up a lot of space. It's increasingly not logical to some degree. And yet, right. As a format, it perseveres.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there are other reasons as well. I mean, there's books behind me, and what you find is there's something tactile about a printed book that's really important. I can go back and grab one of those books off a shelf in kind of an amazing way. If I'm looking for a particular passage that I read a long time ago, there's something you can actually find it pretty quickly, because there's some, coming back to the theme of muscle memory, there's some kind of muscle memory that comes with when you read a book in a tactile way. I don't know what exactly it is, but your sense of touch, your sense of feel becomes wound up in the act of reading. And there have even been studies that show that translates into better retention and better reading comprehension. Studies of students, for instance, show that they retain more and they comprehend more when they read in print than when they read the same content online.
I've seen, yeah, that's super interesting. We've been speaking with Nicholas Carr, author of several books on technology and culture, including the Pulitzer Prize finalist, The Shallows: What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains. I so appreciate your time today.
Thank you. My pleasure.